Hi, this is Joyce Polino Crane. I'm the news director at WestfordCAT. I'm here today with Jose Ramirez. He is leading a fundraising campaign for a church in Cuba that he has roots associated with. Welcome, Jose.
And thank you, Joyce. Thank you and WestfordCAT for having me over.
So happy to have you. We have talked a few times in the past.
That's right.
And I've written your story at least once or twice.
That's right. I remember, and thank you again.
But today we're here to talk specifically about the Friends of Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church.
That is correct, Our Lady of Mount Carmel.
And so this is a group who are affiliated with the town of, or the church is affiliated and exists in the town of Aguacate.
Very good.
Did I pronounce it right?
Absolutely, that's great.
So tell us about the church and your connection to it.
Well, the connection really goes back to the time when my mother and father were married in that church, back in the 1930s, 1932 to be exact. And I grew up across the street from the church, where I received all the sacraments in the Catholic Church, and I was raised in that town. But eventually, as the story goes, I left Cuba at the age of 15 and came to the United States.
And you were one of they called you the Peter Pan?
Yes,
children?
Pedro Pan. Pedro Pan program is a program that 14,048 unaccompanied children came to the United States for about a year, 2 years period of time.
And you were first in a camp, right?
Yes, I was in a refugee camp outside of Jacksonville, Florida, back in 1961, 62.
So it's...
So to go with the story, I basically came and eventually continued my education. I was married, raised a family.
Well, eventually, somehow you got out of the camp and was put with a family, right?
Correct. Out of the camp, I lived with foster homes, foster parents,
Yeah.
and I started my education in college, and ultimately, I found myself in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to be reunited with my cousins, and a couple of years later, I was fortunate enough to have my parents and the rest of my family come to the United States. So that brought us to 1966, and we were reunited as a family, not necessarily living in the same house, but at least we were in the same country.
Yes.
And that's when, soon thereafter, I got married to Judy.
And what year was that?
We got married in '68, so we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Wow, that's huge. So Judy Ramirez is the town's former social worker.
That is correct.
So some people may know her, remember her.
She's better known than I am, that's for sure.
She has retired, since retired. And I hope she's keeping busy.
She is very busy, very busy.
So then you settled somehow in Westford.
I settled in Westford. We were married. We have two boys, and we settled in Westford. We've been here since 1976.
Wow!
So a long time, and my life continued as most lives. Getting educated, raising a family, working, but eventually the time came back in 1994. When I decided to go back to Cuba after 33 years. And so
And the purpose for going back?
Basically twofold. I wanted to see my country, but I also wanted to see my aunts, my elderly aunts who were ill, and I had not seen them in all that time. And I wanted to see them before they passed away. And so I did return to Cuba with my oldest son, actually, in '94. When I was there, I was able to visit my hometown, where the Church of Our Lady of Mount Carmel is located, and I was able to go back a total of 10 times to Cuba during that period of time, from 1994 through 2013. And in between all that period, visiting my hometown, one of the things that became very obvious to me was the state of the church, the state of the town, which was in a very difficult and detrimental state in terms of everything that was taking place, not only politically speaking, but also poverty-wise.
So why were you going back, over and over again? What was motivating you to keep going back?
The first couple of trips were to visit family and to see my home, but in 2000 and one 2002 when I went back, and that was my second or third trip, really, is when I was able to establish a better relationship with the church that was there. And I came back here to Westford, and to make perhaps a very long story short, an effort was created starting in 2002 to the present time, whereby we're making some modest attempt to be supportive of the church efforts in the town.
And this is the church that you were baptized in, confirmed in, and you did your Holy Communion
I
there.
did. It was the church that I grew up with,
Yeah.
and my sisters and I grew up with. So it's very dear to my heart, obviously, from a very emotional point of view. So we were able to establish a relationship. St. Catherine's has been very supportive over the years. At the
St. Catherine of Alexandria in Westford.
in Westford, correct.
That's
And-
a parish that has maybe over 2,000 members.
Yes.
It's a very big parish.
It's a big parish. It's the only
And-
one in Westford.
And now it's connected with St. Anne's in Littleton.
Right. There is now the St. Anne's, St. Catherine's Collaborative. So both parishes are now one collaborative under Father Peter Quinn, who is the pastor for both for the collaborative itself.
Right.
So over the years, we have had different activities, but ultimately, what was created is a group of people that is called the Friends of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. These are people who many live in Westford, some in Groton, some in Nashua, New Hampshire, others in other towns in the state, with people that know of me and the church. And most recently, in the last couple of years, we have been able to make a connection with former parishioners of the church in Cuba that live in exile, like I do, in Miami, Florida. So the Friends of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which is what this group is called, are dedicated to supporting a number of programs at the church. I can summarize by saying one of them is there is an elderly breakfast and lunch program. I can speak to that, what that means. There is a religious education program for children. And then we also tried, whenever we have additional funds, we try to provide them with some relief for minor repairs, which also is a story in and of itself.
So the building is how old, do you know?
Oh my goodness, this goes back to the very early 1900s. I mean, that's when the church was originally built.
What's it built with? Stucco, wood?
It's stucco, but
brick?
the problem with it's a great question because of the repair situation that they have. The humidity in Cuba is such, and the materials that are available for people to do repairs and construction is really significantly a problem. It is not unusual to have leaks in the roof, the inside of the walls, the sheathing of the walls, the outside of the walls are the great deal of deterioration. We had a significant problem in the roof where there was a need to do at least a partial roof replacement. And again, the conditions are such that we don't have a Home Depot in Cuba. We don't have.
You can't run to Home Depot.
You
and
cannot
get
run to
the
Home Depot and
supplies?
build. As a matter of fact, in Cuba, it's more about repairing rather than construction. Because here something breaks, we throw it away and we buy a new one because sometimes it's cheaper to buy something new than to repair it.
Yeah.
In Cuba, really the ability to buy is significantly jeopardized by the lack of materials. So to buy something is very hard, and therefore you need to repair to the best of your ability. I can give you one example. Outside of this effort, we were able to secure some money for them to repair some of the walls in the church, on the inside of the church. Well, we were able to provide them with the money, and they had the money to buy the materials, but it has taken over 6 to 8 months for them to find the cement and to find the paint that would be of a quality nature and other kinds of, I'm not a construction guy, so all kinds of materials that you need in order to repair a wall. And it took them 6 to 7, 8 months in order to get their hands on everything that they needed, even though they had money in hand to get what they needed in order to do the repairs.
Why is that?
Well, Cuba is a dilemma for many people, including myself. It's a totalitarian government that everything is controlled by the government. So the priorities in the country are such that things are diverted to where they are needed the most, and that's not always coincides with everybody's needs. I'll give you one particular example in this town. In Cuba, sugar cane is a major product. Sugar mills have been the bastion of employment for many people over the course of years and years and years. A few years ago, 15, 20 years ago, parts for sugar mills were beginning to break down, and they were no longer able to be acquired. So the government, what they did instead is they basically shut down about half of the sugar mills in the island and cannibalized. In other words, they took parts from one sugar mill to another sugar mill. And so that meant that that particular sugar mill where things were being dismantled ceased to exist. The town of Aguacate had a sugar mill, and unfortunately, it was the victim of that process because the government shut down the sugar mill in the town, and a town that had a sugar mill going back to 1901, 1902. Today, if you go to the same site, and I've been there as recent as 2013, all you have is a chimney. There is nothing left. Everything has been taken away. The walls have crumbled down. And so the biggest employment opportunity for people in town virtually disappeared.
But why would so this is the government that has taken it away?
Correct.
What would be the incentive for the government to destroy a local economy like that?
Because they made the decision to divert, to improve an economy elsewhere at the expense of that one.
So Aguacate has
Suffer.
no major employer.
No major employer, and that's one of the reasons why the elderly and breakfast and lunch program are so critical. We have a program that provides services to a number of people in the town, not too many, 30, 40 people, 2 or 3 times a week, to provide them with breakfast or lunch. The breakfast, just to give you an example, the breakfast is typically something along the lines of milk with some bread and marmalade. That's the breakfast.
This is the breakfast at the church.
That's the breakfast at the church.
For the elderly.
That we basically support. Well, the milk that they receive are of 2 forms. They can get fresh milk if they happen to have a connection with a local farmer who has a cow, believe it or not, and they go and they buy milk from the farmer. The farmer provides that milk at a price, which is okay. I mean, they have the money to buy it at one level, but the problem is that Cuba has 2 seasons, unlike here in Westford. You know, we have only 2 seasons, dry season and wet season in Cuba, just like much of the Caribbean and the tropics. During the dry season, which is where we are entering right now, we're entering the dry season in Cuba. After the hurricane season, November, December, January, February, March is very dry. No rain. In the absence of rain, cows don't produce milk as well. So all of a sudden there is an absence of milk to be bought from that particular farmer, as an example. So the thing that they have to do is to buy powder milk, which is very costly and not, of course, as nutritious. The nutrition value is not the same as fresh milk. So the problem here is so basic that that it's hard for us here sitting in Westford, you and I, to fathom that. You and I run out of milk and we go to the market basket and buy it.
I can't fathom tasting powdered milk. It doesn't sound appetizing at all.
In the absence of any milk, powdered milk is great. So the elderly breakfast and the lunch program are provided. That's one of the things that we support. In addition to the elderly, we have they have a children's program that where the children come in and get religious education, but really it's an opportunity to come together and talk about things that are important during the holiday season, like the one that we're entering right now with Christmas and the like. There is an opportunity for some ceremony and some gift giving and things of that nature. So during the course of the year, we support their ability to do something for the children that are in the town and go to the church. Those are the two major components of the program that we support. The third component deals with repairs. And the repairs are, well, I mentioned the roof, the walls, the doors that need to be repaired from time to time. Water leaks, I mentioned it before, but water leaks are a significant problem there. And the absence of quality material to repair something so that it will last is really a real challenge for them. So that's what we try to do. Every other year, we...
So your fundraising goal is how much?
Well, we try to give them every year $2,000, which is not here.
Is that the goal for fundraising, or is that what you give? You try to raise beyond that?
Thank you for asking the question that way, because the reality is that we try to raise enough money for 2 years, which is $4,000. So we will send them $2,000, and then we have in the bank, so to speak, an additional $2,000, and then we skip a year and we do another fundraiser.
So your campaign is every other year?
Every other year. The last one was in 2017, and the new one is coming up now in 2019, right after the holidays.
Okay, so we're taping this. Today is November 15th.
Correct.
2018, and you're coming into your campaign period, which will be in early winter.
It is, but again, it's never too early to start getting the word out and to communicate effectively. And we feel that WestfordCAT is one avenue or one venue that we felt was important to start moving forward in this process.
Yes. So, how are you going to raise the funds? What do you do?
Well, in the previous, in 2017 and this coming year, is a communication campaign. So before I tell you what that is, previous to that time, we did an event campaign. We had an event in 2014, as an example, where Red Sox Hall of Famer Louis Tiant came to Westford, and we had an event at the Parish Center in St. Catherine's of Alexandria here in Westford. And so we had a very successful event. Prior to that time, we had another successful event that the musical group in St. Catherine's put together. It was a cabaret kind of night with music and dancing, and it was very, very successful. It was a terrific job. But in 2017, we moved into a new phase of fundraising, which is to communicate the need and to solicit funds. And so we tried to be not as intrusive, perhaps, but we like to be able to make people aware of the need and request that funds be provided. In 2017, we did quite well. People were very responsive. We received funds from everywhere. We had enough funds to take us through the 2 years and a little bit more, actually. So we felt that was a very successful approach, and this year we're doing the same thing. It will be a communication process. We're hoping to use other local newspaper activity, venues for this purpose, the WestfordCAT, of course, and we will be using the bulletins at both, at the collaborative, which is St. Catherine's and St. Anne's, to get the word out as well. And of course, people that we know will be hearing from us.
And the checks are to be made out to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul.
Yes, St. Vincent de Paul, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul have been instrumental in maintaining the funds for us, which is very important. We want the funds to be maintained in a very responsible setting. We don't want to touch the money really to a very large extent. So if you send a check, you send it to the attention of St. Vincent de Paul. However, it's very important that in the memo line of a check, you need to write Cuba Church or Our Lady of Mount Carmel or Our Lady, something that tells the recipient of the check at St. Vincent de Paul to know that this particular check is designated for the church in Cuba.
And also, let's just make it clear that there is a Westford chapter of St. Vincent de Paul. So
Yes.
that's where the checks are going, to
That
the
is correct.
Westford St. Vincent de Paul chapter. So we know those people. They're our friends, and they are running this charity, and it's been going on for, I think, about 10 years now.
They do a wonderful job for a lot of people that are in need, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, and we have an address that that people can send the checks to.
Correct. The checks should be mailed to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in care of, you can say Our Lady of Mount Carmel, or Our Lady to keep it simple, or and then the name of the
Who's Dan Towers?
Dan Towers is the treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put it to the attention of Dan Towers, when he gets the check and he sees Cuba Church on the memo line, he will do that. So then the check is mailed basically to St. Catherine's of Alexandria Parish, which is located on 107 North Main Street in Westford, 01886.
Yep. So that is how people can
That people
make
can
their donation.
That is correct.
Okay. So with holidays coming up, maybe people will open their wallets and their hearts, and we'll see.
We're hoping, we're hoping for the best. One of the things that we have been very open about with the people in Cuba is that nothing is forever at one level. We try to do what we can when we can. Mm-hmm. The Friends of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, these people give their time. They're all very busy people with all kinds of obligations outside of this effort, but they all pitch in, and we try to keep at a minimum the amount of effort that is necessary to do it, but everybody shows up, and we meet 2 or 3 or 4 times a year at the most and try to maintain it. One of the things that we're very proud about is that the 100% of the funds that we make designated for the Cuba Church reach the Cuba Church. There are no administrative fees. There are no fees that are paid to anyone to transfer money or to stake money. If we have a $2,000 check, we request a $2,000 check from St. Vincent de Paul, and we bring it to the attention of the person that is going to give it to the people in Cuba. When the person in Cuba receives the check, not a check, but it receives the cash for $2,000. There is not a penny that is taken out. And so since 2002, we're proud to report and to say that 100% of all the funds that we have collected over the years, which is over $25,000, have made it possible to reach the church and the people there. I'm not sure that there are too many charitable organizations that can say the same thing.
Right.
But we can.
That's very nice. Before we run out of time, though, I want to talk a little bit about the priest at Our Lady of St. Carmel Church, because he is the first priest in 15 years to be ordained.
Actually, what happened? The priest that is there is a Cuban priest by the name of Kenny. So it's kind of an unusual name.
We call him Father Kenny?
Padre Kenny.
Padre, right.
But when I was first told that they had a new priest by the name of Kenny, I said, "Oh, what country is he from?" He said, "Well, from Cuba." So who's to say, right?
Yeah.
What you're alluding to is that in July of this year, 2018, that is, we were the first local man became a priest out of in 15 years. So we had a local young man who went through the process of becoming a priest, and in July of this year, July 2018, July 1st, I think it was, he celebrated his first Mass as a priest, and this was a major event. As you can imagine, the first local man becoming a priest in 15 years, it was cause for celebration. And
we have footage of him in a parade.
Of Father Kenny, yes.
Yes.
Of Father Kenny. Basically, what that is that every year during the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which is on July 16th, they go through a process of talking to the local authorities to ensure that they're going to be allowed without asking formal permission, which is a different way of doing business there, to march through the streets with the statue of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And so the video that I share with you is about a minute and a half, basically shows that particular event. It's very basic. Back in the days when I grew up, it was a major celebration, 3 or 4 days, very similar to the Apple Blossom Parade here in Westford.
Yes.
It was that kind of an event. Now they just basically march through the streets and they go back into church. So
I would just like to point out that they did not have a television monitor from WestfordCAT with all the faces of the people on television, but that's a different story.
that's true.
So we only have a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to give you a chance to make sure that you said everything you wanted to say about Aguacate, the church, the fundraiser.
Well, I'm not sure how much more I can say. The need is there. We try to do what we can to support their efforts to maintain some level of comfort to the elderly and the children in the town, and to maintain the temple.
How big is that town?
It's about 5,000 people,
So it's small.
and it's a small town.
And what is the square mileage, do you think?
Oh my goodness, the square mileage, I don't know, but
No.
it's large surrounding areas with farms all around. But it's about an hour and a half southeast of Havana.
Okay.
That's where it's located. But the need is there, and what we're hoping to do is to provide them with that support for the breakfast and the lunch and the children's program, and do some repairs, and again checks to St. Vincent de Paul, in care of Dan Towers at St. Catherine's, 107 North Main Street in Westford, 01886 is what we're hoping for.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Thank you, Jose, for coming, and good luck with the campaign.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us again.
Well, you're always welcome here
Thank you.
on Main Street. For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Polino Crane. Have a wonderful day.